let's talk about this PulseX yield farming thing real quick, since we are just talking about pricing and we know how extreme the PulseX price has been against Pulse. And there's a lot of factors that you have to take into account here. But if you want to, when you get a minute, Ewok, pull up the PulseX to Pulse chart. I mean, we know it's basically just up and to the right. But we a lot have talked about the PulseX yield farm on PulseX that you can participate in. If you're not familiar with like liquidity providing or yield farming, essentially what you would do is with your total stack of Pulse chain, the Pulse token and your PulseX token, you pull them together and basically provide liquidity. So PulseX can use it for other people to make trades and things like that. And it'll be paired at the ratio that it's at currently, which I don't know exactly. Last I checked the other day, it was at about 1.7 or something like that. Which is, again, showing how strong PulseX is. And essentially, they'll slosh around in there while you earn the incentive token, which is why it's called the incentive token. It's an incentive for you providing liquidity. The APY of that incentive token that you have been able to earn, it's been more towards the 10% range recently. But even thinking back to March of this year when things were really hot in the market, I mean, it was over 20%. I mean, we were earning like 22% at one point. So it does fluctuate. I think it'll probably go higher again at some point for sure. And then you've also got another factor to factor in is the incentive token itself. What is the dollar value of it? So you're earning the incentive token. Is it 40 cents? It's been $8 before. Right now it's a little over $2. So, I mean, you have that to take into account as well. But let's approach this because, you know, it also matters when you start your LPing position.
Yeah.
When you first put in your Pulse and your PulseX, what was the ratio? What is it now? So there's a lot of things here. This conversation, obviously, we can't give a full synopsis on like LPing in every single way. You kind of have to be a little bit familiar with it. But to you, Ewok, because I know you've been participating in this pool too, what would give you pause or wanting to just like exit your position for a little while? Is it a ratio thing, like PulseX just running too hard? Is it the price of ink, the APY? Like what different factors would you be looking at?
Well, for me directly, sorry, man, I got something in my eye. I feel like I'm itching it, but so pardon me. But
we're gonna have to have a live on-air eye operation.
Operation.
Here, so.
But for me to exit, it's going to take. Well, at this point, I don't think I am. I think I'm going to have to ride out the cycle because I've ridden it up this far. If I were to exit, because I got in when it was about 3-1. So if I were to exit, I'm going to lose quite a bit of PulseX, right? Because I've earned a lot more Pulse as the chart has gone up, as the ratio has gone up. And I think for people that are jumping in and out of this, that's probably one of the worst things that you can do.
Yeah.
Because you know, you have to factor in a lot of things. If you're a long-term holder and you don't really care and you're just kind of playing the odds of eventually when after the bull market happens, bear market, things will possibly calm down, go back to their original levels. For me at that time, I may consider getting out. But at this time, I don't think there's any need to take that kind of loss. While I'm earning the incentive token, which I think will continue to go up in value as well. So, yeah, for me, it's a long-term play. For those who are doing the whole ratio thing and trying to predict when ratio is going to change, it's super tough, right? I mean, you're not only playing the game of like, I'm going to try and buy low and sell high. Now you're playing a ratio that can change on a dime with one big buy. So it's extremely tough. I don't recommend playing the game. Either get in and stick in long term, or play the stable coin markets and just earn a little bit of yield if that's really what you're trying to accomplish. So I would just wait until the market comes back down after this full cycle, and hopefully gets as close back to that ratio. And if it doesn't, I don't know. I may just stay in for quite some time. I don't think it really, matters to me at this point. I'm not going to dump a whole ton. I don't really need it right now. I would rather it earn something. But again, I don't want to get out at the ratio that I'm at now, because I would lose a considerable amount of PulseX.
So let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate, and I'll go to Christopher's comment in the chat here in a moment. But so you say I don't want to pull out now, because pulling out, you never know what could happen. You never know what slipped through or whatever, But if you pulled out now, let me play devil's advocate. Basically, I'm amused at my own joke, I guess. But
I got it.
what if it gets worse? Okay, is what I'm saying, and not worse is a subjective term, but like what if PulseX just continues to run? I mean, like
Yeah.
if you would put, you could just be losing PulseX more and more and more and more, or losing PulseX more and more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I remember watching a crypto coffee video about this once, and it was back whenever we were like pretty much hovering at the ratio of like 2.5 or something like that. That it was at for quite some time, like basically like between 2 and 3. And it's like, well, if you're comfortable that it's going to stay between 2 and 3 here, then we're going to be fine. Well,
Yeah.
we're seeing crazy stuff here. And Access Alive has been on this stream before saying like, oh, I think they're going to reach parity. And, we've seen bullish tweets about PulseX from Richard Hart, like maybe indicating that could happen. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. We would definitely be washed out of tokens at that point if it did actually reach 1-to-1, or if PulseX even like surpassed Pulse at some point.
Sure.
So it's like, well, that sounds kind of like a disastrous scenario if you'd be continuing to LP during that time. Again, there's all these other factors, like how much ink are you earning? How much is the incentive token worth? And then Fast Abdul one time at a comment made a good point to say, like, well, also, what are you doing with your incentive token? Like some
Right.
people, as you mentioned, are just holding it because it's like, well, I want to see, what could be in store for this thing in the ecosystem. I have a sneaking suspicion something interesting could come. Or are you dumping it for like aggressive memes that you believe in? And are you going to be right about the memes that you dump it into? There's so many angles to this. And it's like a labyrinth. I don't know if there's a right answer, but I think for me, the big thing, like you mentioned, so you got in when it was 3-to-1. I would want to know, where did I get in at? I think that's a very important thing. Like, with most of your stack did you actually enter this at? And if it deviates way too far away from there, I would maybe want to pull it out by that time and withdraw.
Yeah.
I had one more thing to say, but I forget what
Go
it
ahead.
was. So I forget what it was. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, you bring up a good point. Fast Abdul just kind of chimed in there too.
I saw that.
But yeah, what are you doing with the incentive? What are you buying something with it? Are you just holding that token? Are you reinvesting what has become offsides? That's another play as well. So if you're becoming offsides on PulseX, then you use that incentive to buy the PulseX back, right? You want to make up what you kind of lost, and that's also a possibility. Something that I think though will happen is one of these is going to run a little bit more than the other one. And then at the same time, when the cycle kind of turns around and we get back into bear market, and at the bottom of that bear market, things tend to usually even back out. It just completes that full cycle. So, it could also be a very good signal to you to say, all right, this might be back to the point whenever I got in the first time, that's where we're at in the cycle. So, these things will run a little bit harder. Some of them will run harder than others. But knowing that we've got two really interesting tokenomics or pumpamentals or whatever you want to call them, PulseX has the buy and burn, and then Pulse is the actual layer one. So, while one could surge higher, the other one could always come back and surpass it and go back to that other spot too. So, it could hold up stronger. Like PulseX may run harder in the bull run. PulseX may not pull back quite as far after the bull run. So there's all these things you have to consider. And yeah, the best thing to do if you're not doing something with that incentive token is probably to keep yourself at the ratio you were when you got in. That way you're not really concerned. But then again, if the incentive token runs to God knows how high, then you miss out on those gains too. So, there's just so many options. Is there a right answer? Is there a wrong answer? I don't think there really is either. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's kind of, how do you want to play this out? Obviously maximum gains is the best way, but without a crystal ball, we have no idea.
You can't know that, and you perfectly did say exactly what I was going to say earlier. When you're DCAing and stuff like that, so it could be, like you said, maybe distributing the ink, but also with new just fiat that you're bringing into the ecosystem, you could just outweigh by what you've been losing. So I think, so if you just like kind of DCA across all of them equally or something like that. So that is another way of kind of compensating maybe for any that you've lost, and make that ink that you're earning even more powerful. Christopher's comment here: wouldn't you just LP till next cycle? Wouldn't you just LP after the next bull market? Ink is great. Am I wrong here? So Ewok kind of said that. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but with how much that ratio, I mean, we got to remember, like when this stuff launched, PulseX was 1-4 against Pulse. I mean, it was, and when it was ratio trading, I think it was like 1-8 or something like that. But once anybody was actually able to like really trade with USD or anything like that, I mean, it was 1-4. We've seen it come like over double its power against Pulse so far. So
Bitfinesse is against pulling out. He just likes to leave it in. I think they call that soaking, but
yeah, I think they do. Yeah, just the tip of the iceberg there. Yeah, so I'm just checking to see if there's any good comments on this.
Wesley Whip says Hex is the long-term play.
Well,
that's something else you could do with your incentive, is you could buy the coin that you really, really, really like,
that's what you said
not,
earlier.
and not really care. So yeah, he did, for sure.
Yeah, you could do that too. And for people that are, yield minded, of course, like Wesley, I mean, you're going to kind of look towards Hex anyway. Like maybe you're not even as interested in the LPing, which is a short term thing. I mean, you can put it in, pull it out, put it in, pull it out, over and over again all night long, because it's liquid. You can just go in and out with that. Whereas with Hex, you're kind of locking it up. You're kind of popping that baby out for 15 years and raising it to be a grown man, so to speak. So yeah. Any other thoughts there? There's just so many angles. Like I love it as a topic because there's a lot of things we could talk about. And Axis, you guys should check out one of the episodes we did with Axis a while back that had a lot of LP stuff in it. He had, remember that like cool hierarchy that he had? He had that like triangle thing with like a base layer of like what he would recommend to people to be LPing in the ecosystem up to the top. And he went across PulseX and 9-inch and the different things that are available. I would highly recommend going back and checking out. It was our last stream with Axis, probably a couple of months ago or so. Yeah, Blue Diesel says, I'm just trying to make back what I put in back when Hex was high. I've learned my lesson. You can't be stupidly loyal. I thought that was going to be about PulseX. But yeah, you're right. You got to, I mean, we're not going to tell you what to do, but I mean, DCAing when times are tough is the only way to, I mean, sure, you could not do that and maybe reap some benefits when it comes back, but we've been like maniacally DCAing here at the lows, and Ewok's got hex stake upon hex stake, which is another form of DCAing, just earning that APY along the way. And when the market turns up like this, if you've got all those hex stakes and stuff like that, which, I didn't necessarily make a priority to like get millions and millions of T-shares or anything in the bear market, but some people have. Some people have them from when Hex actually launched itself. And when you see these prices turn up, when you've been earning this crazy APY with Hex along the way, I mean, you really see your portfolio blow up.
Yeah.
And that's, again, there's so much game theory. That's why I like Matty Allen's show is called Game Theory Gang. I mean, maybe you only have, Hex stakes pushed out long enough that they're not even going to benefit you in this cycle. So you could say like, well, yeah, your portfolio is that high, but it's not going to benefit you now.
Then what are you worried about it for? That's my point. You shouldn't be worried about the price if you're staked out so far that it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Walk away and come back. If you're not going to do anything now and you have stuff that far out, Blue Diesel, that's great. You brought your cost basis down, and that was what we were saying is, when you DCA and you buy in high, Broke Boy did the same thing. He got in when things were pretty much topping out, but he has religiously bought in, lowered his dollar cost entry, and now it's not going to take near as much to get back to even as it would have before. So yeah, that's you did the right thing, I believe.
And I think many people did that. I mean, people talk about the Mikey guy from the movie,
Yeah.
from the highest of stakes. I know Money Gang Crypto has talked on air about oh, this thing's running up. It's 40 cents. I'm going to get in. I mean, like many people did that, so it is what it is. I'm happy that we have a round 2 here, though, with a whole entire ecosystem now where there's like 5 coins that you could look to go after. But not only that, but all these things that are being built on Pulse Chain as well. Like whether you like memes, whether you don't, there's just so many things happening. And I think we're just about to see like the whole thing absolutely rip here soon. So I'm feeling really, really good about it all.
Yeah.
So. Good conversation, though, on the LPing there. I think we could talk about it all day. And like you said, Ewok, it really does come down to personal preference. And so is the next topic we're going to talk about with the bull market profit-taking strategy. I mean, it has to be, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? What's going to help you sleep at night? I mean, like that's got to be most important, because even if what you're doing may not be like in a vacuum, the most optimal thing, this is what you got to do. Even if it doesn't come out to be that, you are still you. You're a human being with emotions, as much as so many of us like to think that we're mechanical and we can withstand anything and all this stuff. You may not be able to. So as stoic as you try to be, so you may just have to find out like what is going to work best for my mind investing in this market, So
Yeah.